Hey everyone, and welcome back to another movie from our hot news channel. We will talk about American celebrities who died today and in the last few days, as well as famous people from other countries in this movie. Please show your love and support by giving this movie a like before we go on. It means a lot to us. Thanks, let's get started. 1. Jim Ward, 66, has died. He was a voice actor who was best known for his parts in Ratchet and Clank and The Fairly Odd Parents. Stephanie Miller, host of The Stephanie Miller Show, revealed that Ward had died. Ward had worked for Miller for over 13 years. Miller showed him a message from Ward's wife, who called him their voice god and said he was beyond smart. Fans loved Ward as Doug Dimmadome and Chet Urbeka on The Fairly Odd Parents, where he was in 95 episodes over the course of the show's run. He also voiced characters in Ben 10, Grim Fandango, Diablo 3, and big games like Metal Gear Solid 3, Batman, Arkham Knight, and BioShock 2. His role as Captain Quark in the Ratchet and Clank games is one that people will never forget. After a serious case of COVID-19 in 2021, Ward's health got worse, and he later got Alzheimer's disease, which stopped him from going back to Ratchet and Clank, Rift Apart. Jim Ward made figures that millions of people used as kids, in video games, and in animated shows. Fans will always remember the sounds that he used in his work. Oh, Scottish comedian and actor Stanley Baxter has died at the age of 99. He was born in Glasgow in 1926 and became one of the biggest stars on British TV, famous for his sharp wit, memorable roles, and figures that people would always remember. At the height of his fame in the 1960s, Baxter created the popular Parliamo Glasgow sketch on the show On the Bright Side. In it, he hilariously turned Glasgow accent into polished TV English. His BBC hit The Stanley Baxter Show started in 1963. It was followed by The Stanley Baxter Picture Show on LWT, where he played many parts in complex parodies of TV shows and movies and won several BAFTAs. Over the years, he became a mainstay of British entertainment, acting in movies, radio comedies, and the kids' show Mr. Majaka. In Scotland, he was a famous panto dame who made people laugh. The British Comedy Awards gave him a Lifetime Achievement Award for his work, and in 2020, BAFTA Scotland gave him an Outstanding Contribution Award. People who work with and know him say that he is an example. The First Minister of Scotland called him a giant of Scottish culture, and BBC Scotland said he was talented and creative. Before he died on Thursday, Baxter spent his last months at Denville Hall, a London home for artists. His funeral will be a small, private event because that's what he wanted. Stanley Baxter left behind a body of work that has influenced comedy for many years. Elizabeth Franz, an actor who won a Tony Award, died at the age of 84. Christopher Pelham, her husband, revealed that she died at home in Woodbury, Connecticut, after being treated for cancer and having a bad reaction to the drugs she was taking. It was famous that Franz could play strong roles on Broadway. For her part in Death of a Salesman, she won a Tony Award. During her long career, she was in many well-reviewed shows and had a lasting effect on American theater. People liked her acting because it had a lot of depth, emotion, and honesty. She was also liked by other actresses. Franz's work will always be remembered, and many artists were moved by her. Sally Kirkland has died at the age of 84. She won a Golden Globe and was nominated for an Oscar. Her boss said she died on November 11th. Dominic Friesen, Kirkland's spokesman, says that the death was peaceful, with close friends and family nearby. He also said that the words of support she got from people all over the world in her last days were very moving. With a career that covered decades in theater, film, and TV, Kirkland leaves behind a strong gift. An actress who was known for not holding back, she was nominated for both a Golden Globe and an Academy Award, making her one of the most recognized actresses in Hollywood. People and artists all over the world are still moved by her work. Pauline Collins, an actress who was nominated for an Oscar and won a Tony, has died at the age of 85. Her family said she died peacefully on November 6 in a London nursing home. She had been identified with Parkinson's disease. Her loved ones said in a statement that Pauline was many things to many people. They knew her as Shirley Valentine, the unforgettable, strong-willed, and lively character who made her famous around the world. Also, they said that the wise, joyful, and friendly traits people saw on screen were all parts of who she really was. Collins leaves behind a huge body of work in theater, TV, and movies, and is still one of the most famous British actors of her time. And for the Dallas Cowboys. The team said on November 6 that Marshawn Neeland had died at the age of 24. They said in a statement that Marshawn was a beloved teammate and member of our company. They also said that their thoughts are with his family and girlfriend Catalina. Neeland was known for his hard work, energy, and the way he made the locker room feel. He was seen as one of the team's up-and-coming young stars. Fans, co-workers, and coaches are all shocked by his death. They will remember him not only for what he could do on the field, but also for the person he was off it. Many people were moved by him, and he kept the promise he made while on the team. Diane Ladd, an actor who was nominated for an Oscar, has died at the age of 89. She died on November 3 at her home in Ojai, California, with her daughter Laura Dern by her side. Dern wrote from the heart that Diane Ladd was her amazing hero and deeply gift of a mother. She died this morning with Dern by her side. She said that her mother was the best daughter, mother, grandmother, actor, artist, and caring person. Someone who seemed almost magical when they were there. Ladd became one of Hollywood's most recognized and loved actresses thanks to her powerful roles in movies and on TV. She was nominated for multiple Academy Awards. She had an impact on generations of viewers, and her work is still felt in the business today. Her parts will always be remembered, and fans, family, and other artists will always admire her. Mary Harford. A close friend confirmed that she died peacefully on November 2 at the age of 98. She was loved for her part as Hilda, the Carrington family cook on Dynasty. Harford played one of the show's most memorable supporting parts with charm, humor, and warmth from 1981 to 1987 on the hit show. Fans remember her as a well-known member of the Carrington family whose presence gave Dynasty more depth and heart. Harford had a long career in movies and TV shows before she joined Dynasty. She earned the respect of both co-workers and fans. Her roles made an impact that will last, making her a beloved figure in the history of great TV. Her death means the end of another TV star from the golden age. Betty Harford gave acts that will never be forgotten, and fans will continue to celebrate them for years to come. 9. Donna Jean Godchaude McKay, a singer for the Grateful Dead, has died. She was 78 years old. A person who worked for her reported that she died on November 2 at a hospice after a long illness. In a statement, her family said she was a sweet and warmly beautiful person. They said that everyone who knew her is sad about her death. Adding the words of the late lyricist Robert Hunter, they also asked for quiet while they grieved. We wish all four wins a safe trip home. Godchaude McKay was praised for the deep voice she brought to the Grateful Dead, which helped define the sound of one of rock's most famous bands. Fans remember how passionate she was on stage, how good she was at music, and how warm she made every show. It's sad to lose such an important person in rock history. She left behind a body of music that still inspires fans all over the world. Carol Burnett's childhood was hard. She was poor and her family had problems that would have broken most kids. But they gave her an unbreakable spirit and a knack for finding humor in dark situations. Carol Creighton Burnett was born in San Antonio, Texas, on April 26, 1933. When she came into the world, it was already falling apart around her family. Both of her parents, Joseph Thomas Burnett and Inez Creighton, were heavy drinkers. The Great Depression and their own problems made their marriage fall apart quickly. Her dad sometimes worked as a movie theater manager, but because he drank so much, it was hard for him to keep a job. Her mother, who wanted to be successful as a publicity writer, also battled with alcoholism, which would shape and destroy a lot of her life. Carol's parents split up when she was only a toddler. The family broke up in ways that would affect her whole life. Her father moved to California in search of chances that never quite came up. Her mother stayed in Texas at first before following him west. Carol, who was young, was moved around between cousins, which is something that would have scared most kids into silence. She instead became very aware of how people behave. She paid close attention to the adults around her, which helped her become so good at playing characters and making people laugh. Carol and her younger sister Chrissy lived with their grandmother, Mabel Eudora White, in a one-room apartment in Hollywood when Carol was 7 years old. Carol called her grandma mother. They shared this small room with Nanny in an old, rundown house, and it became Carol's whole world. There was a pull-out bed in the room. The three of them lived in situations that ranged from hard to hopeless. There was no phone, not much heat, and it was often unclear where the next food would come from. Nanny cleaned houses and did any other odd jobs she could find to make money so they could stay in their home and eat. But they never had enough, and the thought of being kicked out always hung over them. Inez, Carol's mother, lived nearby in another rundown apartment, and Carol often went to see her. You can often find her drunk in different ways. A young girl who really wanted her mother's love and support found these visits hard and confusing because she saw someone who couldn't even take care of herself. It was Inez's dream to be a writer, and she would tell Carol about it. But the bottle always won, and those goals turned into empty bottles and broken promises. Carol never stopped loving her mother, though. She never gave up hope that things would get better and her mother would become the mom she needed. Carol grew up in a rough area full of other families having a hard time, homeless people, and people who were on the edges of society. In the 1930s and 1940s, Hollywood Boulevard wasn't the fancy place it is today. Instead, it was a collection of failing companies, cheap apartments, and lost hopes. Carol went to Hollywood High School and felt very poor around kids who had a lot more than she did. She wore used clothes and couldn't afford to do many of the things her friends did without thinking twice. Still, even though she was in a place with a lot of lack and restrictions, something amazing was happening inside her. Carol found out she could make people laugh. It started almost by accident. She would use impressions and funny sounds to make Nanny laugh or calm things down. She learned that humor gave her some power and helped her handle events that she felt she had no control over otherwise. She wasn't sad Carol from the bad apartment when she made people laugh. She had the power to get people's attention and change the mood of a room just with her words and face. This finding would turn out to be more valuable than any inheritance, stable home, or other common advantage other kids had. As Carol's life got more and more crazy, her grandmother Nanny became the one person she could always count on. Even though she was strict and loving, Nanny had big dreams. She also saw something special in Carol, even when there wasn't much evidence to support her belief. She encouraged Carol's natural desire to act and never thought her granddaughter's antics were silly. Never failing to find the money, Nanny would take Carol to the movies whenever they could. These wonderful trips away from their hard lives became their favorite times. Carol started to picture a different future for herself as she sat in the dark and watched unrealistic artists on TV. The way to that future seemed so far away, though. Another place Carol could go to get away was school, though she sometimes had trouble because of how crazy her home life was. Her teachers noticed how smart she was and how well she could imitate others. Some liked this about her, while others thought it was annoying. Walked a fine line between being the class clown and a serious student, never quite fitting in either one. She joined the school's theater group and found that the skills that got her in trouble in regular classes were praised on stage. It was a place where being dramatic, taking on other roles, and showing emotion and humor to people in the back row were not only okay, but even encouraged. Carol was very determined to never go down the same road as her parents when she saw how much pain they were in by drinking too much. She saw directly how her parents' addiction took away everything from them: their skills, their potential, their pride, and their relationships. Being exposed to the destruction of addiction at a young age would have an effect on her whole life. Helping her make decisions and finally getting her to talk openly about the disease and how it affects families. She knew even as a teenager that she was seeing warning tales play out and that her parents' lives were examples of things she should never do. Carol Burnett rose from poverty to become one of TV's most beloved stars through ability, hard work, and the kind of lucky breaks that only come to people who are ready to take them. After graduating from Hollywood High School in 1951, Carol went to UCLA to study writing at first. Even though she grew up in Hollywood, she didn't have a clear path to a job as an actress and didn't know anyone in the entertainment business. She was just another student having a hard time. Like many others, she had to work several part-time jobs to pay for school and live with Nanny in the same small apartment. During Carol's first year at UCLA, she found the theater arts school and changed her major. This upset everyone. She worked hard at every project she could, developing the skills that would make her famous in the end. During a student production, she had her big break when she did a comedy act that made everyone laugh out loud. Some wealthy people were in the audience that night, and they were so impressed by Carol's natural ability that they made her an amazing offer after the show. They wanted to give her a $1,000 loan with no interest so that she could find work in New York after she graduated. The only rules were that she had to pay them back within 5 years and never tell anyone who they were. Carol's whole life changed because of this strange act of kindness. With this loan and a lot of drive, Carol moved to New York City in 1954 and lived in a boarding house with other aspiring actors. She went to many auditions and kept going even though she kept getting turned down. She did this by staying determined and eating the cheapest food she could find. In 1959, she got her big break when she was cast as Princess Winifred in an off-Broadway show called Once Upon a Mattress. Her show was amazing. It showed off her perfect comedic timing, beautiful singing voice, and fearless physical humor. People loved Carol Burnett, and all of a sudden she wasn't just another struggling actor, she was a rising star. Television came calling almost right away. From 1959 to 1962, she was a regular cast member on The Gary Moore Show. It was there that she created many of the characters and comic sketches that would later become signatures of her own show. In 1962, she won her first Emmy Award for her work on The Gary Moore Show. Supporting what everyone who saw her perform already thought, she was unique and exactly what TV had been waiting for without even realizing it. In 1964, she was in Fade Out, Fade In on Broadway, but the show had problems, and Carol had health problems during the run that caused the show to be closed for a while. The Carol Burnett Show started on CBS on September 11, 1967, and that was the start of Carol's real life. In many ways, the show was groundbreaking. For example, big TV networks didn't think that variety shows hosted by women could work. Carol showed them how wrong they were in a big way. The Carol Burnett Show was the most popular show on Saturday nights for 11 years, ending in 1978. It is now one of the most beloved shows in TV history. The show's structure looked very easy, but it wasn't. The show started with Carol answering questions from the crowd. Then there were comedy sketches, musical numbers, and performances by guest stars. But what made it really funny was Carol's fearless dedication to comedy. She was ready to look silly, wear outfits that didn't fit her, and twist her body and face for laughs. The group of actors Carol put together became famous on TV. Harvey Korman, Vicki Lawrence, Lyle Waggoner, and later Tim Conway worked together as a comic dream team that made some of the funniest moments in TV history. There was real, contagious energy between these performers. People watched not only for the sketches, but also to see these talented people make each other laugh, often by breaking character for moments of real comedy that were wisely kept in the final broadcasts. These blooper moments, in which actors struggled to keep their cool while acting, became almost as famous as the scripted parts. The figures Carol made for the show became well known all over the United States. As Mrs. Wiggins, the cleaning lady she played, she became famous for her tight skirt, funny walk, and awkward exchanges with her boss, played by Tim Conway. As The Stomach Turns, the show's soap opera spoof, ran the whole time it was on, satirizing the melodramatic standards of daytime television. Eunice and Ed, a married couple who fought a lot, became fan favorites and were the basis for the six-season sitcom Mama's Family. Carol made fun of Tarzan's yell so much that she made it her signature greeting, pulling on her ear at the end of every show to send a special message to her grandmother Nanny. During its run, the show won 25 Emmys and was named many more times. Carol got 6 Emmys for her work on the show, which made her not only a great actress but also one of the most important artists of her time. The guest stars who came on the show were like a who's who of Hollywood stars. Stars like Lucille Ball, Rita Hayworth, Jim Nabors, Steve Lawrence, and Eddie Gormley, just to name a few. Even though the show ran for a long time, it never felt old or repetitive because every week there were new acts, parodies, and characters. Carol was known for how hard she worked. She was involved in every part of the production. She read and approved stories, helped create characters, and practiced endlessly to make sure every sketch worked perfectly. The show was very popular when Carol decided to end it in 1978. She thought 11 years was enough time. That the show should end while it was still great instead of getting worse over time. As a sad farewell, the last episode showed clips from memorable sketches, cameos by past cast members, and Carol's famous ear tug one last time. CBS tried to get her to stay by giving her more money and full creative freedom, but Carol knew it was time to move on and try new things. Even though she wasn't as popular in movies as she was on TV, she did have a few memorable roles. In 1972, she starred opposite Walter Matthau and Pete and Tilly, which got good reviews for how emotional she was. Alan Alda directed the 4 seasons in 1981, which showed how well she could mix comedy and drama. Annie saw Carol play the bad girl Miss Hannigan in 1982. She played the part with delicious meanness and comedic style. In movies like 1992's Noises Off, a farce that needed perfect timing and a lot of physical comedy skills, she showed she could do more than just be funny. Carol continued to work steadily in TV throughout the 1980s and 1990s, acting in many TV movies and specials. In 1990, she went back to regular TV with Carol and Company, but the show only ran for one season. She was a guest star on many popular TV shows, always adding her own style and skill. She had a recurring part on Mad About You, which got her another Emmy nomination. She appeared in several episodes of Glee, showing off her skills to new fans who might not have known her from her time on variety shows. Carol worked in theater for the rest of her life. She went back to Broadway more than once, including in a famous production of Moon Over Buffalo with Philip Bosco in the 1990s. Even after decades of working in movies and TV, she still had a strong stage presence, great comedic timing, and the ability to connect with live crowds. She went on tour with one-woman shows called An Evening with Carol Burnett, in which she talked about her amazing career and answered questions from the crowd, demonstrating that the structure that started her variety show was still useful and fun. Even though Carol Burnett seems to have a lot of energy and a contagious laugh, her life has been marked by serious health problems that have tried her strength and made her face her own mortality. The woman who made millions of people laugh for decades had to deal with private health problems that put her job and quality of life at risk. The way she dealt with these problems showed the same drive and common sense that got her through a hard childhood and helped her build an entertainment business. Had surgery in 2018 to remove a growth from her lung. It was a surprise to hear the news, even though Carol had never smoked, which made the growth of a lung tumor even stranger. The growth was found by the medical team during regular checkups. Carol kept her meeting, even though many people would have skipped or put it off, because she was very careful about her health in her later years. The tumor was safely taken out, and thankfully it wasn't cancerous. Still, surgery on the lungs is dangerous, especially for someone in their mid-80s, and it took a long time and was hard to get better. Carol had to miss some public appearances and performances because of the surgery. This was something she had never done before in her work. For a woman whose identity was so tied to performance, being in front of crowds, and making people laugh, this forced break was almost as hard as getting better physically. To get her strength back, she had to learn how to breathe right again. Believing that her body could once again handle the high-energy shows she had been giving for decades. She was briefly weaker after the surgery, and there were real doubts about whether she would fully get back to her old level of health. Carol's usual practical and private way of dealing with this health problem was shown. She didn't say anything about the surgery until after it was over because she didn't want to worry her fans or become the subject of rumors and speculation. When she did talk about it in public, she stressed how thankful she was that the tumor was caught early, that she had access to great medical care, and that her family was there for her while she was healing. She didn't want to be the victim or think about the worst-case scenarios. Instead, she focused on getting better and going back to the work she loved. During her whole life, Carol also had to deal with the physical damage that years of acting did to her body. Performers on The Carol Burnett Show had to do a lot of pratfalls, intense physical comedy, costume changes, and acts that were physically demanding in ways that viewers don't always understand. Over the years, she hurt herself in a number of ways when she fell on stage or when her physical comedy went wrong. Her back, in particular, took a lot of abuse from years of physical performance. It caused her constant pain, which she mostly dealt with by going to physical therapy and paying close attention to her health. The worry and pressure of having a weekly TV show for 11 years also took a toll that couldn't be seen. Carol dealt with stress and the kind of exhaustion that comes from being in charge of not only her own act but also a whole show that employed many people and entertained many millions of people. As a way to deal with her stress, she created coping strategies like regular exercise and meditation. There were times when her fame and duty made her mental health worse, but she rarely talked about them in public. Few people outside of the comedy business could really understand how heavy it was to have to be funny week after week, to come up with new material and memorable acts. Carol has been open about the problems that come with getting older, like how a body that used to be able to do anything starts to put limits on what it can do. It used to be that her voice was so strong that it could fill a theater without any extra sound. As she's gotten older, it's become a little weaker but still recognizable as hers. Even though she is in her 90s, she can still move around pretty well, but not as easily as she used to. This makes her more careful and thoughtful in how she moves. She has talked about how frustrating it is to have a mind that is still smart and creative but a body that doesn't work as well as it used to. Carol's childhood with drunken parents left her with mental scars that needed to be treated and fixed. Even though she never became addicted, she dealt with the bad things that happened to her as a child through therapy and self-reflection. She worked to keep the problems she saw in others from ruining her own relationships and family life. She has been very open about how important it is to get mental health help, deal with trauma instead of burying it, and break the cycles of dysfunction that can be passed down from one family to the next. Many of her fans felt less shame about getting mental health help because she was willing to recognize psychological damage as real health problems. The comedian has also been honest about how he deals with grief as a health problem, knowing that mental pain shows up in the body and needs treatment and care just like physical illnesses do. As we'll see in the next part, the losses she went through caused real health crises that needed professional help to get through. Through her own experience, she learned how to deal with her sadness, keep functioning even when the pain of loss was too much, and find reasons to keep going even when she wanted to give up. Despite all of her health problems, kept an attitude that was shaped by her hard youth. She was tough and resilient because she had lived through poverty, instability, and seeing her parents kill themselves with drugs. These traits helped her a lot when she was having a health crisis. Life isn't fair, and good people do bad things. She knew that the only way to deal with problems was to do so with as much kindness and courage as she could muster. This view of the world, formed by hard times as a child, came as a surprise gift at the perfect time for her. When Carol has had health problems, she has always focused on being thankful for what she still has instead of being angry about what she has lost. She didn't think about the scare or how hard it was to heal after surgery on her lungs. Instead, she focused on the fact that she was still alive, that the tumor was benign, and that she could still perform and connect with audiences. This isn't naive optimism, it's hard-won wisdom from someone who has been through enough real suffering to know how to spot blessings when they come along. Carol says that Nanny helped her see things this way. The way she kept her pride and hope even though she was poor taught Carol that attitude is more important than circumstances. Her fans like how she's been honest about her health problems, especially in recent years. By being open about having surgeries, getting older, and the fact that even famous people die and can get sick, Carol has helped make it normal for people her age to talk about their health, which is something that many people her age avoid. She has shown that being honest about your limits is not a sign of weakness but of wisdom, that asking for help is a sign of strength, and that it is possible and worth it to keep finding joy despite physical problems. Many people would have been broken by the losses Carol Burnett has had in her life. Even though she has been through terrible grief, she has found a way to not only live but also find meaning and purpose in her life. The woman who made so many people happy has been through pain that few could understand. Tragedy that made her find strength she didn't know she had and pushed her to her limits of endurance. It's a cruel irony that people who make other people laugh often hide the heaviest loads behind their smiles. Inez, Carol's mother, died of drinking in 1955, when Carol was only 22 years old and trying to make a name for herself in New York. The illness that had ruled her mother's life and ruined any chance of a normal relationship between mother and daughter finally took her life. Carol had seen her mother get worse over the years and had hoped over and over that her mother would finally get clean and become the parent Carol so badly needed. That day never came though. Inez died mostly by herself. She had wasted her talent and her dreams, and the bottle she couldn't stop hurt her relationship with her daughter so much that it could never be fixed. She felt sad not only about the mother she lost but also about the mother she never really had because of alcohol. She missed all the times they could have spent together and loved each other. Joseph, her father, had a similar sad ending. He died of drinking in 1967. The same year that the Carol Burnett Show began. Carol was becoming popular and loved, which was the kind of success her father had once hoped for himself. He didn't live to see it all come true, though. Like her mother, Joseph's death was both shocking and expected. He had been drinking for decades, and that was how he would end his life. Carol had tried many times over the years to help him, to support him financially and to urge him to stay sober. But the addiction was stronger than love, duty to family, and any other reason Carol could give. She went to his funeral feeling guilty, angry, and sad at the same time. She kept thinking about what she could have done differently, even though she knew that he made his own decisions. In 1967, Carol's beloved grandma, Mabel Eudora White, who was also her nanny, died. This may have been the most important loss in her life. During Carol's crazy childhood, Nanny was the only safe and loving person who believed in her when no one else did. She gave up everything to raise Carol and her sister when their parents couldn't. Nanny only lived long enough to see Carol become a big star. She wanted to know that the poor girl she had raised had become famous, and that her faith and struggle hadn't been in vain. The ear tug that Carol always did at the end of her show was a message to Nanny.
A quiet I love you sent to millions of homes but only meant for one person. Did the move again after Nanny died?
So now, let's honor the woman who made it all possible. Every week, she would tell herself and everyone else where she came from and who helped her get where she is now. Chrissy, Carol's younger sister, had lived in that crowded Hollywood apartment when she was a child and had a hard time. She has had problems with drugs and mental health her whole life. The same demons that destroyed their parents also took hold of Chrissy. Even though Carol did everything she could to help, treat, and support her, Chrissy could never fully break free from the patterns she learned as a kid. She passed away in 2002 at the age of 68. Carol was sad about her sister, whom she loved but could never quite save, and the life they had shared, which had hurt both of them in different ways. When Chrissy died, a part of Carol's life came to an end. She was the only one of her direct family members still alive, and she held on to memories that no one else could share. But the death of her daughter Carrie Hamilton in 2002 was the loss that almost broke Carol. It put her faith and her determination to keep going to the test. Carol's oldest daughter from her marriage to TV director Joe Hamilton was Carrie. Like her mother, she went into show business and became an actress and writer. As a teen, Carrie had a hard time with drug abuse. She started rehab when she was 17, but she got clean and rebuilt her life. She was in a number of movies and TV shows, and she and Carol were working on a play about Carol's childhood when something terrible happened. Carrie was told she had lung cancer when she was in her early 40s, even though she didn't smoke. The news was terrible, the kind of nightmare that every parent fears, but Carol thought she had already been through enough bad things to be spared. Carrie bravely and determinedly fought the disease. She went through harsh treatment while trying to live as normally as possible. Carol did nothing but watch as her beautiful and gifted daughter got weaker and the cancer spread despite all the medical care she received. The daughter who had been through so much was now defeated by something that love, money, or fame could not stop. In the 18 months between being diagnosed and her death, Carol was in terrible pain. She spent as much time as possible with Carrie, trying to be strong for her daughter even though she was secretly falling apart. She had to keep working, keep going out in public, and keep being the famous and loved performer Carol Burnett while also being the mother who was watching her child die. It was almost too much for Carol to handle, and she later said she didn't know how she made it through those months. That she seemed to be operating on autopilot while screaming inside. She passed away on January 20, 2002, when she was 38 years old. While she died, she held her and whispered love and comfort. She was there for her daughter during the worst time of her life because she needed her to be. The sadness that followed was different from anything else Carol had ever felt, and she had been through a lot. It's sad when parents die of addiction, but things happen in a normal way. A belief that kids will live longer than their parents. Losing a child upsets the very fabric of the world and causes grief so deep that it can't be explained or eased. Carol has been very open about how she felt after Carrie died. She said she wanted to die too because she didn't see any reason to live without her daughter and the pain was so bad it felt like she was being stabbed over and over again. She went to therapy and grief counseling because she knew she couldn't handle this loss on her own. Her daughters Jody and Aaron, who were still alive, and friends who knew that there were no words that could make this better were there for her. As a tribute to her daughter and to make sure that Carrie's last creative work got seen, she finished the play Hollywood Arms that she and Carrie had been writing together. There was a show called Hollywood Arms on Broadway in 2002, not long after Carrie died. I couldn't go to the opening night because the pain was still too new, but the play ran for a few months and got good reviews. Carol cared less about how well it did with critics and more about honoring Carrie's memory and making sure that her daughter's voice and ability wouldn't be silenced by death. Putting together the play gave Carol a purpose during the first few months of her grief, when she felt like she couldn't get out of bed. In 2018, Carol's family was hit by sadness again when Dylan, Carol's grandson and the son of her daughter Aaron, had problems with drugs. Carol and Brian Miller, Dylan's husband, asked for and were given temporary guardianship of Dylan when he was 13. They took over to give Dylan security and care when his drug use made it unsafe for him to do so on his own. It made me think of Carol's parents and sister, as well as Carrie's early problems and the way that addiction seemed to run in her family, even though everyone tried their best to stop it. Carol dealt with Dylan's situation with the knowledge she had learned from dealing with addiction in her own family for many years. She gave him love and discipline, set clear limits, made sure he got professional help, and didn't let him act badly while making it clear that he was loved no matter what his problems were. Carol didn't plan to raise her teenage grandson when she was in her 80s, but she gladly took on the job because she knew Dylan needed her and that she had the means and knowledge to help in ways that no one else in the family could. The guardianship situation was hard and confusing, and Carol had to make tough choices about what was best for Dylan, which caused problems in the family. Even if their choices were different from what other people wanted. Carol was criticized for being too strict and overstepping, but she always put Dylan's health and happiness first. Too many people she cared about had died because of addiction for her to watch another family member suffer if there was something she could do to stop it. Carol has had to find ways to keep living after all of these losses. In a life full of constant sadness, to find meaning. She has talked about how comedy became both a safe place for her and a duty. She says that making people laugh gave her a reason to get up in the morning when her grief made her want to stay in bed all day. Though not in a religious sense, she says that her faith, which is the idea that love survives death and that the people she has lost are still with her in some important way, helped her stay alive. Carol's loss has affected her work in ways she didn't expect. She gives dramatic parts a depth that can only come from real suffering. Her performances are real because she understands how fragile and strong people are. Her comedy is also shaped by pain, from knowing that laughing can help you deal with tears and that happiness is valuable precisely because it's short-lived and hard won. She has said that having alcoholic parents as a child taught her that humor could ease stress and make bad situations a little less bad. This is something she has used in her work and in her personal life. Even though she is in her 90s, Carol Burnett is still a big part of American culture and entertainment. She defies ideas about what an older person should look like and shows that skill, wit, and determination don't fade with age. At an age when most people have retired and fallen into quiet routines, she still works, performs, interacts with audiences, and fights for causes she believes in. Her current life is an amazing mix of thinking about her amazing past and being involved with the present. This shows that the drive that took her from being poor to being famous is still strong. In the past few years, Carol has become more picky about the job she works on. She doesn't take every job that comes her way, she picks work that interests her. She doesn't have to prove anything to anyone anymore, and she doesn't need to work or go to public events all the time to feel good about herself. She instead works on projects that push her creatively or give her the chance to work with people she looks up to. Some of her most interesting new work came from having the freedom to choose. Acts that show how versatile she is and how important she is in an entertainment world that has changed a lot since she was on variety shows. In recent years, one of Carol's most important projects has been working on the highly acclaimed prequel to Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. Carol played a character that she played over and over again for several seasons, which gave a new group of viewers a chance to see how dramatic she could be. Many reviewers praised her performance, saying they couldn't believe someone in their 80s could do something so complex and powerful. Carol's part introduced her to people who mostly watch TV through streaming services, which is a very different way of watching TV than the way she became famous decades ago. Carol Burnett has also kept up her evening with Carol Burnett Touring Show. She goes to performing arts centers across the country to answer questions, tell stories from her career, and meet new fans as well as old fans who have been following her for decades. These appearances are becoming more and more important to her because they give her a chance to meet the people who have supported her success. She goes into every show with the same drive and preparation she used for her variety show. She never fakes it or treats the crowd like they don't deserve her best. She is happy and stable in her personal life now that she is married to Brian Miller, a singer and contractor, for the third time. Brian is a lot younger than Carol, but their marriage has been real and lasts a long time. Brian is Carol's friend and supporter, and he goes with her to events and public outings. Brian has been especially helpful during hard times, like when Carrie died and when Dylan was put in charge of her care. Carol has opened up about how Brian brought her unexpected happiness in her later years and how she has treasured finding love again after her second marriage ended. Carol's present life still includes being the guardian of her grandson Dylan. Dylan, who is now 20 years old, has made progress in dealing with his drug problems, but it hasn't been a straight line or an easy road. Carol continues to support and guide the child, juggling the duties of grandma and guardian in a way that makes it hard to help someone without letting bad behavior happen. Carol has stayed linked to modern youth culture in ways she didn't expect, and it has helped her understand the problems young people face today. Carol is doing more and more work to support care for addiction and mental health problems. Because of her family's long history with these problems, she has used her voice and fame to support groups that are trying to make care more available and remove the shame from addiction and mental illness. She has talked to lawmakers about the need for better mental health resources, told the story of her family in interviews and films, and used her fame to teach people that addiction is a disease, not a moral failing. Carol's work has given her a purpose beyond fun, a way to turn the pain of her family into something that might help other people. Carol won the first Carol Burnett Award at the Golden Globes in 2019. This is a brand new award made to celebrate her outstanding contributions to television. The award that was made in her honor is a great example of how things can come full circle. Recognizing not only what she has done in the past but also how she continues to affect and be important today. Carol's victory speech that night was warm, funny, and self-deprecating. She also thanked all the people who had helped her along the way. The standing ovation she got showed how much love and respect she has from artists of all ages. The place where Carol lives with Brian and where she spends most of her time is in California. Friendships with people from all over her career, including cast members from her show who are still alive, and new friendships with younger performers who look to her for help and support. Her reading habits are very strong, and she stays up to date on current events and society. She also watches modern TV and movies to see how the medium she helped shape is changing. She's not one of those famous performers who thinks everything new is less good than what she did. Instead, she approaches new work with genuine interest and respect. Carol has gotten used to the physical limits that come with being in her 90s while still being very active and involved. She is more careful now than she used to be. Her voice isn't as strong as it used to be, but it says the same things. She gets tired more quickly than when she was younger. But she still has a smart mind, a quick wit, and an amazing ability to remember details and stories. She deals with getting older with the same realistic method she used for other problems. She accepts what can't be changed and fights to keep what can be kept. You can still see and feel how much she affected modern entertainment and TV. A lot of artists say that Carol inspired them. A lot of women in comedy saw her as someone who could be funny without being mean, do physical comedy without losing their honor, and be in charge of a stage and a camera with skill instead of stage tricks. The variety show format that Carol perfected is directly responsible for shows like Saturday Night Live. Many modern sketch performers study her work to learn how to timelines, create characters, and work with others. Carol Burnett is a live link between the golden age of TV and the streaming present. She shows that talent and authenticity can cross generational lines. She has been through poverty, family drug problems, the death of a child, and many other hard things. But she is not angry or broken. She is still able to laugh, interested in life, and giving of her time and gifts. She is still making new memories. People who get to see her perform or meet her will make new friends and have new moments of happiness. This shows that worth and purpose don't go away at any age.